Today we have Sam Quinton, and he's going to be talking about his new comic, Rayne of Ages, and I'll also be asking him some questions today. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm having a wonderful day. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I was so confused. I didn't know whether to call you William Sam or Sam William. So
Sam is fine. Sam is
Sam is
fine.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So he has his new comic book on Kickstarter, which is called Reign of Ages, issue one.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So I wanted to ask, what is the summary of the comic book for people who don't know?
Rain is kind of a one of these bad girl comics. Our strong female protagonist and her adventuring companions. Rain is the last surviving member of a now dead order that protected the ancient elven empire in this setting. And due to circumstances arising from her last fateful mission on behalf of her empire, she was kind of frozen in time, uh, locked away in an ancient ruin crumbling around her until events transpired that brought her back and into the present in the setting, which is a fantasy setting that's shared by the Tarot Adventure series that I write for Dungeons and Dragons Fifth Edition rule set. So it's an interesting uh, opportunity to add lore to that setting and to bring new original stories to folks who enjoy comics and also to the people who are enjoying those adventures.
Awesome. Hello for everybody coming in. So I wanted to ask, how did you get this idea? Was it just the Dungeon and Dragons, or was it more?
Well, what started was is that Nick Capone, who's done a lot of work with me in the past on other projects like Dungeons and Dames, he's done colors on several different projects for me for everything from page border art to commissions that we used in the Sinopa Omnibus. And Nick had a title on Webtoons with artist Christian Martinez, and he was really wanting to kind of spread out a little more and get some more of his creative muscle flexing a little bit, I guess is a good way to put it. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd like to do a comic, like a bad girl themed comic with a strong protagonist, something like Lady Death or La Morta, the Brian Pulido influence is showing there." And we hashed out some general ideas for a little while, and then I came back with a script based in the tarot setting, since I own the trademark for that. And we had hired Alexia Veldhausen for editing, put that in front of them, and got a few editorial comments, revised the script, and everyone came to the conclusion we had a little bit of a winner. But the inspiration was really the desire for Nick to bring this kind of strong, kick-ass lady character to life, and do so in a way that really afforded us the opportunity to tell fun, interesting stories that were at the same time really gritty in their own right. So we're not shying away from violence. If you look at the Kickstarter campaign, you'll see it's pretty graphic fantasy violence. The pages we selected have a lot of zombies getting cut up, for example.
Like,
And
this is beautiful.
yeah, we went ahead and decided that we were going to get Aisha Gulsanev to do the main cover. And so that's the one that you see showcased first in the campaign story. It's also used as the title card for the campaign. And then Nick was doodling around one night and came up with a concept piece that he was working on and then fleshed it out. It ended up becoming the Nick Capone Virgin cover that we're putting together. And then when we commissioned JP Buzio for an art piece for use as a stretch goal to add an art print for the campaign, when Nick got done coloring it, it was really, really stunning. And so as other fellow creators that I consult with, that I talk to, that I respect and share ideas with, sorry about that. and then also several of the supporting stores that we ship comics to for 47 and some of the RPG books. As they got to see what we were looking at, a lot of them inquired as to making that a cover also. So we ended up selecting to do a very, very limited print run of the J.P. Buzio cover with Nick Capone coloring. So it was one of those things where basically the influence of the community helped guide several key decisions on that. And then putting that all together was one of those things where you have to take the business elements and bring the funding into play. And so we've obviously been really busy on that for the last several months. So we've got our covers done. Um, Most everything's already been paid for. Just need to finish paying off for lettering and a little bit left for editing. Excuse me. Which again goes into the Kickstarter total, and then of course the print runs and the shipping. And so it's going to be one of those things where the turnaround time on this is pretty rapid. We're actually going to be shipping books out to backers in February, so it's going to be one of the best turnaround times we've produced from Sonova so far. Excuse me a second. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I heard you perfectly fine.
Sorry
I
about
was just
that.
hearing noise like in the kitchen area, so I had to close my
Gotcha, gotcha,
door.
gotcha.
Oh, so you got a webtoon writer to come on?
Well, he's doing illustration. He and Nick Capone shared the illustration and writing with Sinister Sisters, which is their title. There,
Oh,
and they've done some really interesting work with that, which was a succubus and I believe a vampire who were roommates and were having adventures together.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've been seeing as a person who has like read webtoons for like a really
Mhm.
long time. I've just seen people now trying to use it as an insult, like, "Oh, it looks like they got a. This looks like it was created by somebody who does webtoons," and I'm like, "But there's like a lot of good writers and a lot of good artists on there, and
There are a
you
lot of
know,
good a lot of good webtoons out there. Particularly, I'm seeing a lot of really good manhwa artists and creators who have
yeah,
really leveraged webtoon. Because the thing about webtoon, as opposed to traditional print comics, is you do have to adapt your storytelling. You have to get used to telling in this scrolling fashion, top to bottom, which I realize doesn't sound very difficult when you compare it to like your panel work, but it really is because with your panels, even if you're reading through one panel at a time, you still get and are aware of that sense of dynamic action panel to panel. So webtoons is a different animal. I mean, you really have to adapt your writing for it. I have not figured that out yet, so I personally don't have anything on webtoons yet. But it's not to exclude it. I mean, I think there's room for it certainly, but anything for that would certainly have to be rewritten and illustrated in a very different manner from traditional manga or comics.
I definitely see that because there's sometimes when they have full panels, but you have to, if you're on a phone, you have to turn your phone the other
Right.
way, like TV screen or whatever, to see
Hmm.
the entire thing. And I'm like, wow, there's just so much detail and everything. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, this might be a weird question.
Shoot.
Out of all the hair colors, why pink?
Um, that was actually entirely Nick Capone's choice. With the character design elements, Nick has absolutely free reign. He is a complete co-creator, 50-50 on the intellectual property on this. And so we did have a discussion about some different options. And in the end, I said, you know what, you're the guy who's deciding the art on it. Go with your gut, man. And his gut said pink, and so pink haired elf it is. It's kind of neat though because it lends itself to some of the callbacks to things like the old heavy metal comics, the comics that were in Heavy Metal magazine and such, and some throwbacks to some very punk themed uh, comics in the 80s and 90s that really just didn't care, and wants to really just show off that bright flamboyance. And the other thing from a artistic and narrative point of view, it makes it very easy to distinguish the character panel to panel, So in that sense, it's very advantageous. Just like if you're looking at My Hero Academia, Izuku Midoriya is the only person with green hair. So it makes someone really, really easy to stand out. Now, the comic itself, issue 1 is black and white, and issue 2 and issue 3 will be black and white. If our funding is there by the time we get to issue 4, we'll start color editions in issue 4.
Oh, so it's all in black and white right now.
Yeah, it's issues 1 through 3 will be black and white. Now, of course, the covers
Nice.
are full color, obviously, but the interior black and white, nice sharp contrast for it. So, and that there's a lot of reasons on that. One of the big one is time. With the production schedule that we have for this year, we've got 6 different comic issues to get out between the 3 comic titles that Sonopa's releasing, and so. Having to color uh, this on top of everything else that we have the team working on is just not possible. And if we're going to fulfill in the next month, like we've been projecting, so Kickstarter in January, fulfill in February.
Nice.
Beautiful
I
book.
like we were talking about this a little bit before the stream started. But about like Kickstarter and everything and how
Mm-hmm.
like kickstarting your comic could be something like pretty difficult to do,
Yeah.
and like with a campaign, getting it funded, getting the
Mm-hmm.
funds, all that stuff. Do you think it's harder because of COVID, or do you think it's just as hard with or without it?
I think in a lot of ways, COVID has brought more people to Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Um, I think that that's actually helped indie comics, and to a larger extent, actually board games and other tabletop games have really seen a boost in their numbers. So I think the pandemic, in that sense, has been pretty beneficial to creators, especially new creators, because it kind of, as you have people who've never really done a lot with supporting crowdfunding campaigns, when they come to the platforms, fresh, and they don't really have a history with any one creator, I think it gives a lot of great opportunity for new creators, particularly.
Awesome. Do you also have the is Rayne of Ages also on Indiegogo, or is it a solely a Kickstarter thing?
It's going to only be on Kickstarter right now. It will actually come to Indiegogo in April in a campaign that's launched alongside of 47 Furious Tales with issue 3, and we'll combine those so that people who prefer the Indiegogo platform can go ahead and get those copies. We actually just closed the Indiegogo in demand campaign for 47 Furious Tales issue 1 and 2 that we had ran for a couple extra months subsequent to that campaign. The nice part about doing Indiegogos after the Kickstarters are fulfilled is that then we have the books on hand from that campaign, and fulfillment is literally almost immediate. For the Indiegogo campaign for 47 issue 1 and 2, for example, I was often on streams and literally fulfilling pledges while we were on streams and shipping them the next day. And my buddy Larry is apparently in the chat. Hey, Larry, and that's Niobe Comics. Larry can attest to that statement because I was actually on a stream with him one night, and people pledged to that campaign on the Indiegogo, and we went and he saw me box them up and ship them right out. It was a lot of fun.
Hi Niobe, hi Larry. So I do have a question. Do you prefer Kickstarter or Indiegogo? Do you know which one has been getting like more traction when you put your stuff out there?
I certainly have a larger following on Kickstarter. That's where I started, though, and most of my book releases have been role playing games, which is incredibly small market on Indiegogo right now. Comics, I think Kickstarter and Indiegogo are rapidly, coming up to about the same. I still think there's more people on Kickstarter because the Kickstarter name is a little more well known. Um, but as far as preference, I like both platforms. I always I intend to always utilize both, and probably be leading with Kickstarter for the foreseeable future, as again most of my audience is there. I mean, I think I've got 230 or so people following me on Kickstarter, where I think I have 5 following me on Indiegogo. So
Wow.
Whereas you have other creators who are the entirely opposite. You get some folks who have a couple of hundred, or 1,000 or so people following on Indiegogo, but don't have any presence at all on Kickstarter. Um, and that's just the difference between people and preferences and platforms. But the platforms, as far as the interfaces and the features, are very, very similar. There are some distinct difference that people will usually quote as to which makes for their preference. Indiegogo, of course, being able to go in demand after that, so you have basically a storefront there, is certainly an advantage. Um, Kickstarter having an all or nothing model is advantageous for the people who are pledging, because of course if the funding isn't successful, then they're not charged anything. So that helps to mitigate the risk, I think, to backers a bit, which is appealing for a lot of people as well. And I mean, there's good arguments for both, and so I just keep using both.
Honestly, for me, Kickstarter is just more accessible because it actually has an app. While for Indiegogo, I have to keep on going to my internet and typing
Right.
it in, or just like have it saved on my computer and just click
Mhm.
on it, just go.
And
That's
that's another really great example of how it affects people's preferences from the platforms themselves. I mean, it's a really big deal. Sorry about that.
you're fine. Funny enough, the cough was muted.
Yeah, I tried to catch it in time.
So, I was wondering, so I actually wanted to skip a little bit over to the 47 Furious Tales because I know that issue 3 is going to be coming out soon.
Right, right. In
Was
March.
it
Yeah,
January? March, that's what it was. Thank
yeah.
you.
We're gonna crowdfund in March and ship in April.
Yes, because you ship them really fast. Like I got my comics really fast.
Yeah, we really we try to. Now with issue two ran I think it was a month and a half slower on production than we anticipated. We had a few unexpected things that crept up. Um, but pretty sure we got everything nailed down on all three of these books that we've got coming out in the next 6 months. So we should see things literally crowdfunding campaign, fulfillment, on throughout 2022.
Awesome. Now, for people who don't know what 47 Furious Tales is, would you mind giving a summary of that?
47 Furious Tales is the story of the 47 Ronin from Japanese history, the Eiko incident, where the samurai of Asano Naganori, who was the daimyo of the Eiko province, extracted their revenge against a shogunate official named Kira, who had baited Asano into a violent act, which ended up condemning him, and he had to commit seppuku to preserve his honor. The Ronin, of course, were, along with all the rest of the Ronin, were subsequently left without a master. The house was broken up, and the shogun prohibited any acts of vengeance against Kira. And so this cadre of these 47 loyal retainers conspired, plotted, and eventually executed their revenge against Kira. And so 47 Furious Tales is the story of that piece of history, but it's told with anthropomorphic animal characters. So you have samurai squirrels, foxes, rabbits, monkey bandits, and rats, and other type of anthropomorphic animals like you might see in Usagi Yojimbo or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The violence on it is graphic. We do recommend it for ages 17 and up, just like we recommend Rayne for ages 17 and up. So literally in issue 1, you have people getting limbs cut off or heads being decapitated. Blood flows in this, just as you would expect with any samurai story. So it's pretty neat. We have the artist for that is Alexia Veldhausen, who has agreed to illustrate the entire series. That is
Nice.
a copy of issue 1. And of course, these are all in full color, which she does an absolutely stunning job on.
Yeah, I loved the full colors. I loved the shading and I loved everything about it.
Yeah, she's really remarkable. She's actually working as the editor on Rayne of Ages as well. So we try to keep her
Ooh,
as
getting
busy as
up there.
possible. Yeah, she's basically like my right arm when it comes to getting comics made. Yeah, she's becoming pretty indispensable.
Awesome. How do you think like how many issues do you think it'll take to cover the whole 47 Furious Tales stories?
47 Furious Tales is set for 12 issues in total.
Nice.
Yeah, so we'll have it because we're actually doing something you don't usually see in the movies and in the stage plays and stuff depicting this. There's about a year and a half to 2 year period. Accounts vary on the history on that, um, during which they were plotting and trying to, deceive Kira into feeling they were really not going to seek their revenge. All the while, they were very actively setting him up to undo him. And I think that makes for a really interesting part of the story that unfortunately doesn't get a lot of attention when people are trying to squeeze it into a 2 hour play or a 90-minute movie. But with comics, we can definitely take and expand upon that and point out just some of the incredible things these men had to go through and some of the depths to which they were willing to sink to get their revenge. And we've also brought in elements that doesn't get a lot of attention because Kira, for one, was very intent on keeping an eye on these people because he was fearful for his life. And he employed a lot of different spies, and among them were people who worked in tea houses and geisha, and in some, theatrical accounts from the period, prostitutes and such. So it was just one of those things where you get a chance to really dive into some of the things that were alluded to in some of the earlier other plays and such that were preserved, and some things that were actually recorded as having happened, such as a notable instance where the leader of the 47 was had drank himself into intoxication as an effort to deceive some of the people into believing that he had literally just become a worthless drunk. And when he went to leave, he was accosted, spat upon, and just rather than lash out and kind of give up the hint that he was still the samurai he had always been, he took it and feigned to be just this downtrodden soul who had nothing in life left anymore, and deceived a lot of people and into believing that he had fallen that far. So it was a pretty successful ploy, and we're definitely bringing that element into the storytelling for 47.
That's awesome. That actually reminded me of something. So like because of anime and all that stuff, I
Mhm.
decided I was like, let me learn about the culture since I like this stuff. And it was actually one thing I did learn was about geishas
Mhm.
and how like they weren't always like the whole prostitute things, and that there
Very
was,
rarely, yeah, very
yeah,
very rarely.
and that the other ones were called, oh shoot, I don't remember the name,
Right,
oirons or something like
there
that.
it's a very
That's-
particular term for them, yeah, but
it's so
yeah.
hard to remember everything because it was years ago. I'm surprised I still remember. So despite 47 Furious Tales being for 17 and up because of the violence and the storytelling, I'm surprised
Mhm.
that you chose animals. What was the animals for?
Um, with 47, how that kind of came to be is that I was um, I was actually working on another project, and I took a break to cruise around the internet, and I saw this image, this little GIF of these two squirrels bouncing around, and someone had animated lightsabers with them. And
Oh my god.
so, um, right, Hominis is right about that. Anyway, the squirrels were bouncing around with lightsabers, and it gave me a good chuckle. And then just a few minutes later, I saw an image online of a squirrel in full samurai armor, and I had been working on story ideas that I was going to pitch for our different comic ideas, that because we hadn't gotten any comics made yet. We were just doing RPGs at the time, and there were some licenses I was pursuing that ended up not being able to get, and then there was a few other ideas that I had that I was pitching. And the story of the 47 as soon as I laid it out, the story, hey, we're going to use anthropomorphic animals. We're going to tell the story. It's going to be 12 issues. And because I'd already taken and figured out basically how I wanted to break up the arc for it. And I put it out into the work group that I maintain for the artists that I hire. And Alexia Veldhausen jumped right on it. She was, as a really serious samurai enthusiast, is right up her alley. And she's, in the work that she's done for that book, she's proven that she has an incredible depth of respect and love for all things samurai. And it's just been a terrific match. That series wouldn't really be made with anyone else. If something happened and she had to leave 47 Furious Tales, it wouldn't continue until she came back.
Oh man. Wait, is Van
So
Helsing her real last name?
Veldhusen,
Van Hilsen? Sorry.
Veldhusen, yeah, Veldhusen. I just messed up the pronunciation, but yeah, Veldhusen, not Veldhausen, but Veldhusen. Okay. I'll stutter it over today.
I stutter a lot too. Don't worry about it. We're all stutterers.
Alexia Veldhausen. There we go. I got it right finally. Had to say the whole name.
It makes it better when you say the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to ask, how long have you been doing this for? This whole indie comic scene?
Um, wow. Indie comics started with 47. So we're about 2.5 years in, because getting the hang of producing comics has taken a while. Publishing with role-playing games and such began in 2017 when I founded Sonoma Publishing. So we've got 4 years in and going to be hitting the 5-year mark in a few months.
Nice.
It's crazy.
Is it difficult to keep coming up with new ideas?
The ideas, not so much. The difficulty is in figuring out which one you want to refine into an actual product. Getting it funded to pay for the art, because I can't draw at all. And then thank God for crowdfunding for that, because we've really been able to create some really, really cool things because of that. From like the RPG perspective, this is a little book called Whispers of Persephone. This is actually one of the proof copies. But this was illustrated by Christian Martinez. And one of the things we did with this is we had the spine of the book as a spine with the flesh flayed off on either side.
Ooh.
So we actually had to produce a different version of that too, because some of the stores that we deal with wouldn't carry that like that. So we did an all black version as well.
What was wrong with the first one?
Well, some of them don't really want that flayed flesh look on the shelves. It kind of didn't sit well with the aesthetic of the shops, I guess. But I mean, we sell them through Drive-Through RPG, and I take copies with me to conventions, and it's actually been a really good seller for us.
Are you ever going to go to Florida Con?
I am hoping to go to Florida to visit the collective in June or July, depending. Well, actually, it'll have to be in July now I think about it, because they wanted me to come down and do some signings down there, and so I'm hoping to round up some of the freelancers with me and make a trip down there and maybe spend a couple of days in Altamonte Springs and hang out with the shop and some other creators I know down there, and sign some books and shake some hands, and just say hi to everyone who's been supporting us there. They've been a real big customer for us, I guess you could say, and they've been really, really great to us from day one. So it's nice to be able to start to planning trips and where you want to go to see people and let people ask questions of you, and just kind of be social with the people who have helped make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. I want to ask, is it every time I go to the Florida Con, they're getting more and more expensive? How much are you charging for everything?
We typically just charge the actual retail price. So like when we did actually all the cons, all 3 cons I've been a retailer at so far, everything's just normal book price. So the comics 47 are the same $5 that we charge anywhere else. I mean, most of the cost on the Kickstarter is actually the shipping, because the shipping's more than the price of the book. But yeah, usually it's $5 for the comic. Depending on the RPG titles, some of the books are $25. Some of them are 19. We got a few that are 12. It just kind of depends on which title you're looking at, and it varies by page count, whether it's hardcover or whatnot.
Do you know if they're once like Furious Tales finishes, do you think there's gonna be like a trade paperback or with Rain too?
Well, with 47 Furious Tales, when the 12th issue is done and sent out, we're doing a hardbound edition that we're going to make available as well. And one of the things that we're planning on doing is going over to Japan, and Alexia is wanting to come with me on that, and take a copy to the temple where the 47 are interred, because they've got a lot of stuff that people have brought to them over the years. Things from different plays, different films, different books, the whole nine. And just so people in the future can have this appreciation for what's been done in honor of these people. So hoping to get to go there personally, because I've never been to Japan, and going to the shrine where the 47 are interred would be a fantastic experience. So here's hoping we can make that happen once all those issues are done.
I feel so bad because I know of 47 Ronins, but I didn't see the stage plays, I didn't see the movies, I never read about them. So it's like I know nothing. I just know that they existed.
Yep. Yeah, I'm hoping to go to the land of the rising sun. It's going to cost an arm and a leg, and I might have to,
Definitely. Oh my gosh. It's so
might have to
expensive.
start an OnlyFans or something to pay for the flight. But I'll get there eventually. Yeah, excuse me. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it, and being able to see where they're actually interred in person, as opposed to just from photos and from news footage and stuff like that. That's going to be an amazing experience.
Are you gonna get a translator or are you just gonna wing everything?
I'm going to have to get someone to translate, because the only things I can say in Japanese aren't really even enough to order food. So I'll have to get a tour guide and a translator, and
You
figure
didn't
that
learn
out.
from watching anime?
No, no, I mean that's about all I can say is stuff from anime, and that's just not going to fly,
That's true.
especially
The
especially if
language difference.
yeah, I mean, especially if you're watching stuff like Grimgar, or you're watching uh,
Grimgar
Witch,
Fantasy and Ash?
yeah, or Witch Hunter
Oh
Robin,
my
or
gosh. Nobody
uh,
I don't know anybody who actually like rather read the novel, read the manga, or watched the anime of
it's funny
that.
because Neff and I with Global Frequency were just literally talking about Grimgar on his stream also, with relation to character death and how to use character death effectively. And Grimgar is one of the best examples that either one of us could come up with. I think he brought it up first, actually, as far as relating to using character death in a good way to help actually, bring out more of your character's character information and show an important turning point in their story. And Grimgar did a wonderful job of that.
I was robbed out of season 2.
We were all robbed out of season two. It's so horrible. I wish they would just do it with the same staff that they had, because they did such a beautiful job. The watercolored backgrounds, the way
It was
everything was
so
animated, it was
good.
smooth. The underlying musical scores were fantastic. The sound effects were spot on. Voice acting was great. I mean,
And I was just getting used to the new girl.
yeah, yeah, man, and so much to go on there too. Death Spots is dead, and now we need now we need some more good villains.
Oh my gosh, more goblins to kill.
Yeah, I know, right? With the goblins, it's personal.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I wanted to ask, what got you into this? What got you started of wanting to actually do something like this?
Well, I've always enjoyed comics, and then as a teenager, I thought it'd be kind of cool to make comics, but I can't draw. Um, and then in 1999, I opened my own comic shop, and I had that for about 6 months, and then I had an issue with my marriage, and ended up selling the shop to a friend of mine. And when I couldn't, when my marriage couldn't actually recover, we ended up getting divorced. And so I left. I went back to my old job that existed before that, which was that's a different story for another time. And I was gone for about another 8 months. I got injured pretty bad, and came back. And my buddy who I had sold the shop to had asked me to come back and help at the shop. And excuse me, sorry about that. Came back to the shop, and I was there and ran it for about another 3.5 years. And the love of comics never really left. And when I started that shop, it was always part of that was always, I can get to learn how the comic industry works. I can figure out things from the retailer perspective, and hopefully eventually I can meet enough artists that I can figure out how to actually make comics. And I learned a lot about how the retail end works, which is probably one reason I'm so big on working with retailers to put our books on the shelves directly. Um, and then by virtue of doing the role playing game books myself, whereas I had been submitting work to companies for years prior to that, and that there were some issues with that never really came to fruition. And I finally, in 2017, I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. I will write it. I'll get people to do the art. I'll publish it, and it'll fall on my head which way it goes, whether it succeeds or fails. And so every day is a lot of work. Every day is a struggle to get more stuff done. And honestly, I don't think I'd trade it for working for someone else ever. It's whether or not things work or don't work is my fault, my responsibility, my duty, and working just to do the best I can and get better with each book. Hope to build the company into something I can leave my kids one day.
Wow, I didn't expect such a heartbreaking story.
Well,
But it
it's not really
happens, you know.
heartbreaking. It's just life. Life happens, and you know
Unfortunate.
it,
I'm just
it is
kidding.
as it is.
Uh, so I like you were reading comics before. Was it mostly indie comics or was it like the usual stuff that's pretty popular, like
Well,
Marvel
when
or
I was
DC?
when I was little, we didn't really have a lot of indie comics. You had Marvel, you had DC, and you had Valiant. Is basically what you had. And then in the 80s, we started to see more indie books come out. You started to see things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you started to see an influx of more of the Japanese manga that were getting translated. And and if it works, it's your success. Well, yeah, I guess, honest, I guess that's true. I kind of like to think the success is the part of the whole team. Um, but I mean, yeah, I mean, every campaign that funds is just a huge joy, whether it's a $500 goal, $5,000 goal, $10,000 goal, whatever it is. Once you see that there's enough support behind the idea that you can actually get funded, that's amazing, because that in itself is kind of a validation of the concept. But getting back to the comics, I was, as a kid, I was a huge Superman fan. That was my comic right there. And then I got more into Spider-Man, Batman. In my teen years, I was just a huge X-Men fan constantly. And then in my early 20s, which was yay the 90s, I was reading everything. Everything I could get my hands on that I thought was cool, whether it was Neil Gaiman and Sandman, whether it was Arya with Avalon Studios, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Poison Elves. When Strangers in Paradise came out, I started reading that. That was a really fun series. Um, yeah, stuff by Marvel, DC, Image, Valiant, Crusade Comics, you name it. If it looked even remotely interesting, I was picking it up. And as I got older, I kind of lost interest in some titles and picked up interest in others. And here, the last few years, most everything I read is either on a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or was originally on there. And then there's some titles that I still pick up anytime they release something. Like when Image released on Aria book earlier this year, boom, got it right off the bat. Just because it's one of my favorite over the entire time I've been reading comics since it first came out.
That's amazing. For me, like as a kid, you have the cartoons coming out, and I was like born in the 90s, and they were coming in like 90s, 2000s and stuff.
Right.
But I actually didn't watch anything like the Superman animated series or the Batman animated series until,
Hmm.
well, for the Batman, that was last year. For the Superman, I'm still on it.
Oh
I
wow.
only got
Okay.
season 2, and then so
Oh, wow.
I'm everybody's like, you don't know about Superman? Watch the Superman cartoon because
Yep.
I didn't really feel anything towards Superman, but while I'm watching the series, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I love Superman." And the
Yeah.
reason why it's taking me so
There's a
long to
few
finish
years
the
now.
show is cuz I don't want to finish it. I don't want to finish it. I don't want it to be done.
Yeah,
And I'm
you
like,
do.
"Dang it."
Batman the animated series, just Superman, and then you go into the Justice League cartoons after that, and it's just a fantastic character growth progression in that way. It's really something special. And like my daughter actually is a comic book fan in her own right. She's really heavy into My Little Pony comics,
Nice.
so that's fun. I'm trying to find some Scooby Doo comics for her. My local comic shop doesn't have any, and
What?
they're not printing any right now, is my understanding. So I've got to go back and pick up some from about 6 or 7 years ago. I think was the ones that we're looking for specifically. But yeah, and then she's actually going to be getting her own comic once funding's available for that, in which we're just going to title Super Willow, and she and her brother are going to be recurring kid superheroes in that.
Ooh, I would definitely love to back that.
So
I love that stuff.
that's going to be fun. And the fun part about that one is the characters are set to grow as the kids grow. And so basically, when they get to 18, if they still want to be superheroes in a comic, they can say yes or they can say no, and whichever.
Of course,
Um,
we gotta give
but I
them a
think,
choice.
yeah, I think it'd be fun thing for them to grow up with is, being their own superheroes.
Awesome. Is there any projects from like Indiegogo or Kickstarter that you backed this year or last year coming into this year that hasn't been
Yeah,
funded yet?
that hasn't been funded yet.
Sorry, not funded. I meant finished, like closed.
Actually, I think everything I've backed is scheduled for delivery and on schedule right now. I'm getting um, books from Max DeVille, who's produced. This is a long list, so hold on a second. He's done Neo Tokyo. He's done Mary Machine Gun. He's got Human Hunters. He's about to come out with the oh god, Bimbos versus Zombie book, and then Mike Shea, who does Miskatonic High, Madeline Holly Rawson, who does Boston Metaphysical Society, Larry Patrick Higgins, who does Niobe, just some Raj Mahan and Greg Harms, who did Mojo Rising, Joey Pineda, who does Troubles Back. Just really strong storytellers in there. Of course, anything that's been written by Brian Hawkins at all, whether it's something that he puts out through Kickstarter or something that comes through Boom. He's just a fantastic writer. He really has a gift for storytelling. He did a book called Cornrows, which was the first thing I ever read from him, which didn't fund on its first time. It did fund on its second, so I can feel some kinship there. Um, but unfortunately, we don't have a Cornrows 2. I'm hoping we'll get one eventually. But Cornrows was something really, really good. The storytelling in that, when you get done with it, leaves you with this impression like you just witnessed something important, which is, something that you don't usually get from a comic. Was it perfect? No. Was it really good? Hell yeah.
Is there any comic writers that you recommend at the moment to like just whenever you see that name, you buy?
Yes. Larry Patrick Higgins, because Niobe is a fantastic character and he does really good work with it. Some people consider him a little bit controversial. That's okay. I like his work and I have a lot of respect for people who do what they say they're going to do. And Larry is good about that. When he says he's going to fulfill here, he fulfills here. Max DeVille with Atrocity Press. he's telling wow, excuse me. He's telling some really fantastic stories in a lot of different genres and pulling it off wonderfully. Madeline Holly Rawson, anytime she launches something, I back it. Period. Same with Brian Hawkins. Madeline's storytelling is fantastic, and her work on Boston Metaphysical Society has created this whole universe and this whole depth of character that is something that second. Wow, pardon me. Something that's really special. Mike Shea, his comics are fun. His stories are well constructed. The art is precisely on point for the narrative. He has just a fantastic team. Just really great. And then Joey Pineda, who's of course Trouble's back, and a couple other titles in the works. I don't know if I can mention the one he's working on because he kind of talked to me about it. But yeah, Joey does some really great work. So if you see anything from any of those creators, certainly back it. I did just back a couple of campaigns here recently, one of which is from a gentleman I've been backing his work for a while now. And that is, man, excuse me. Sorry about that. And that is Hildy and Richie's Wizard. And that is, of course, by Mark Weisner. He has been putting out these Hilda and Richie books for a while. And it's not a very stylized art form at all. It kind of reminds me of Peanuts, to tell you the truth. But he does a lot of storytelling in small numbers of panels. Like a page might have 2 or 3, sometimes 4 panels, but not very often. And he just tells these fun stories in short form. It's kind of like how Schultz was able to do with Peanuts. His storytelling doesn't parallel Schultz very much, but the manner in which he conveys his stories does, if that makes any sense.
Definitely.
And then there's a couple other titles I've backed recently from creators I hadn't backed before. So we'll see how they come up, just because there was stuff that I thought was interesting. I'm sorry, this cold is kicking my butt. There we go.
Don't worry about it. It happens to all of us. That's why ginger tea is the best.
Yeah, I'll be
And
actually having some
elderberry.
mint tea in a little bit.
Nice. I love mint tea. Okay. I'd lost my train of thought for a second there. I'm
Our
sorry.
last question was, creators that I'm supporting and backing and books I'm looking forward to.
Ah, yes. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Do you think it's a problem to back somebody who's considered quote unquote controversial, or should people have do this thing or separate art and artist?
Um, I think you should separate art and artists whenever possible. I think that sometimes there are just people who are going to rub you the wrong way, and it'll make you feel bad to give them your money. I think that's just part of human nature. But there are people whose campaigns I've backed who were considered controversial to one person or another, and yeah, that's okay. I mean, I had someone recently on Twitter of all places, because nothing ever bad happens on Twitter, right?
Right?
Who sent me a tweet out of nowhere saying they wouldn't support my campaigns because I was a Billy Tushy fan. Okay, bye. Because I'm a huge Billy Tushy fan. I love Billy's work. And I mean, I've met Billy a couple of times at conventions, and he's always been perfectly gracious, a really nice guy. He's had me on his YouTube channel a few times, and I mean, just absolutely think the man is wonderful. His work is fantastic, and if people want to condemn me for being a Billy Tushy fan, then I guess I'm condemned for being a Billy Tushy fan. I'll keep writing books and telling stories and enjoying Billy Tushy's work.
I heard I have a couple of his works. It's really good.
He is amazing, isn't he?
Yes. Oh, did you
I
say that
actually
for?
have.
Oh, you have it? Yes.
I actually have something that I bought from Billy at the last convention I was at.
That's the comic book cover I have.
Signed by Billy Tushy himself
Dang
right
it.
when I was there.
Oh man. And you're not gonna hang it up yet?
I've got a whole stack of stuff I have to hang.
Yeah, me too.
And I will. And some of this I took down because I was showing stuff on other shows. I'm really bad about that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had this piece I was showing, which is the first cover, the original art for the first cover for 47 Furious Tales.
Oh my
Unfortunately, I
gosh,
only
it's
printed
beautiful.
500 copies of that cover, so those sold out pretty fast. But I was showing that on a thing I did for one of our supporting stores. So showing those and some of the other cover pieces we have. Yeah, Billy still puts out sheet titles on both Indiegogo and Kickstarter.
And he's doing the uh Miss Fury one that's, I don't know if it's still in demand or not.
I'm
But
not
there were
sure if
some
Miss
problems
Fury
with
is or not.
that.
It was in demand for a while. I don't know if it
Mm.
still is or not.
It's finally almost getting shipped because of
Mhm.
other stuff.
Hey, John, how's it going, man?
Hello, John.
Black
Ah,
Phoenix, yeah, she is great, man. Billy's work on She is absolutely fantastic. Billy's aged like fine wine. He's really as good as he is. He just keeps hitting higher notes. It's just man, just absolutely incredible.
I wonder if he's still gonna make even more. I
Yeah, I
might have
mean,
to wait.
he's got more titles coming, from what I understand. I guess we're gonna see more She next this year, actually. So yeah,
I'm
we
gonna
are
be
truly
broke.
blessed to have more Billy Tushin.
Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to ask
Sure,
before we end the stream for today.
sure.
I was gonna ask, is the person who does the illustration on the Rayne of Ages? I don't remember if you told me that the person who did that and the person who did the cover, are they different or were they the same person?
Well, Nick Capone is the principal artist, and he did all the interior work, and then the Virgin cover, the Nick Capone Virgin cover with Rain holding the sword with a tear coming down her eye, was done by Nick entirely. He did the color on J.P. Buzio's piece, and then the main cover was done by Aishagul Sinev.
Because I was, some people were having a discussion. Uh, do you think it's more expensive to hire somebody for? Do you think a cover artist would be paid more, or is it more expensive to hire a cover artist, or do you think it's more expensive for the interior work?
Well, the interior work with this book is a little different because Nick is and I are complete partners in this particular project. Normally, you'd have a fixed page rate, and that page rate is dependent upon the artist. And if you have colors, you have additional costs on that if you're using a separate inker and then your letterer and such. So when you get down to it, depending on the, the the prices that you're seeing, it is not unusual to see a fully colored page cost you anywhere from $250 to $600 a page,
Ugh.
depending on who you've got as an artist, right? And some artists who are particularly well known are certainly going to cost a lot more than that. I had one artist who particularly well known quoted me $1,000 a page, and I gotta tell you, if I had the money, I would have that book. But cover art again is going to vary widely according to the artist in question. I know some artists who are going to charge $300 to get a cover done. And I know some artists who are going to charge $800 to get a cover done. And I know some artists who are going to charge you $2,000 to get a cover done. It really just kind of depends on what that artist what that artist's fee schedule is. And the
I
thing
thought
about
it
that,
was the time. I thought it was like, oh, less amount of time, meaning it's
well,
cheaper or fast.
the time can be a factor in their price calculation, honestly, but you're not usually hiring someone full time to be a cover artist. You know what I'm saying? You're usually hiring on a piece by piece basis. And the thing about it is that when you're hiring for, say, a cover piece, and you're paying, not just for the art, but also the rights that are inherent in that. So your copyright is being held by you or your entity, and your person who's creating it is on a work for hire kind of agreement, and that's spelled out in your contract. And by the way, if you're ever creating comics, definitely, definitely use contracts and then stick to them. Pay the people what you tell them you're going to pay them. Pay them when you're telling them you're going to pay them. Pay them in actual money, not exposure. Pay them in money and in products so they can resell it at convention appearances. Get your agreement together and then stick with it. That's how you get professional relationships when people want to work with you year after year after year. Alexia Veldhusen wouldn't be working with me 4 years, 5 years now with me not sticking to our agreements. So that's something to keep in mind, folks. Make sure you do that. Take care of your people. But yeah, I mean, the thing like with covers and interior art, if you're having that done and you're getting those right, there's a lot you can do with those pieces as well. So, for example, the cover art for 47 Furious Tales has been used on posters and on different merchandise. The same things with a lot of the RPG work and art prints, big posters, little posters, everything around there. Um, Actually, one of the ones I'm showing off, the first cover for issue 1 by Alexia Veldhusen. And we have these in 11 by 17, and they've been really popular at convention appearances for us. But the other factor on that is the art being created conventionally as well. You know, are you buying the original page that's done on? And if so, that's going to bring your price point up because an original comic page for interior art can really tack on another $200 or $300 a page very, very quickly. An original page for a cover can run you another $300 to $700 depending on the artist. I can tell you that with some of the artists I work with, Tony Ojeda, Alexia Veldhusen, Zach Viola, they've been able to sell original pages for work they've done for me that I didn't buy in our contracts for $400, $500 a page sometimes.
All this talk about money makes my brain hurt because I can never
Yeah.
fathom like this much money just to go into everything, and which is why like some people say, well, why don't you just make your own stuff? And I'm like, well, I can't do all this. I have to hire people for it too.
Yeah. Well, it's like me. I can't draw, and that's a big problem for a guy who wants to create comics, not being able to draw. You know, and without crowdfunding, I would never have the money to do that because the crowdfunding on this actually isn't covering all of the costs inherent because I've already laid out, you know, let's just say a significant amount of money to get work done on Rayne of Ages. Not to mention the costs for like trademark registration, copyright registration, monies that was spent on promotional materials, stuff like that. Hey, Mijo, Chris Marrero, love you, man. How you doing? Dr. Soup, what's up? Thanks, bro. But he says, I know him. He can't draw, and that's the truth. I can't. Not at
I can't
all.
draw either. It's okay.
But you know, it's one of those things where you find professionals, you treat them like professionals, pay them as professionals, and you get your stuff done. Like most all of the money that comes in from books that are sold right now literally just goes right back into other books. I think maybe I've taken $200 out in the last 5 years from stuff that I didn't put back into books. Everything else has gone back into the next project, which is, you know, again, commitment to building a company I can hand down to the kids and, you know, building a name that people can trust for producing the highest quality books I can produce.
Do you actually keep like a really good sum of the money?
No, I turn around and put it right back into I literally think in like since 2017, I think I've only actually taken out $200 of money that I made. I think everything else has actually gone back into other projects.
Oh,
So,
I always want the people to have their money, but money,
well, I
you
mean,
need money to get money, you know.
my artists have been paid well. So, I mean, that's one of
I'm
the
glad for
things.
her. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask any of the artists I've worked with. They've always been paid according to contracts. So, they're pretty happy.
Oh, I totally forgot to ask you one more question. I
Sure.
promise. I forgot to
However many you
ask.
need.
Are you going to be doing? Because I have it saved. I didn't back Rayne of Ages just yet.
Mhm.
Are you going to be having digitals for Rayne of Ages and for the next 47 Furious Tales, or are you not interested in digital?
No, we do digital and everything. So Rayne of Ages digital is whopping $3. Honest, it's 32 pages worth of book for $3.
That's a
So
good price.
yeah,
Usually they charge like 5 when I see
yeah,
that.
we really don't try to let me rephrase this so it makes more sense. I try to make sure everything's as affordable as possible. Like in the Rayne of Ages campaign right now, all of those price tiers include shipping within the United States. And the
Ooh,
shipping is the bulk of the price. So to get like cover A is $15 shipped anywhere in the United States.
did the not using color help a lot with the expenses?
Not at all. Not at
Really?
all. Really, because I print in bulk. And so the
Oh,
price difference on that's only about 7 cents different between that and full color. The price
really?
was on the printing wasn't the issue. And of course, we have Nick Capone, who's a beautiful colorist, but the factor is really a mountain of time. And so we have to make a decision on the schedule. Do we only put out 2 books for Rayne of Ages this year, or do we get the first 3 full issues, that whole introductory character arc done this year, and do it in black and white? And yeah, we do it in black and white and get the full 3 issues out. Now with book 4, if we're if our crowdfunding levels are high enough to where we know that we'll be able to not just make it account for the time, but also make it work financially to so that we can get Nick some more money. Obviously, as a partner in this, he still needs to get paid. Um, we certainly want to take a look at that, but at that point, we would need to be seeing crowdfunding revenues around on current prices for print runs, postage, and everything. We'd need to see around $12,000 or $13,000 in crowdfunding revenue per book to make sure that we're able to get everything printed, um, colored and shipped and everything like that, and make sure that Nick isn't working himself to bone for nothing.
You can do it, Nick. We believe in you.
He's a fantastic colorist, but coloring a page is hours and hours and hours of work. A good example with Alexia, there's some of the pages that she's colored for 47 that have taken 8 hours or 10 hours just to color, and that's after she's drawn them and inked them, which takes another couple hours. So some of the pages from 47 Furious Tales have 16 hours of work in them. I mean, that's a lot for a page. And that's just the illustration part. That doesn't count the time that Brian Lee spends lettering it, or the time I spent formatting it. It's just real heavy lifting there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And also, everybody, make sure you back Rayne of Ages issue 1. We're only at 1,757 out of 5,000. Make sure you
Yep.
share, tell your friends, tell your teacher, tell your school bullies, let everybody know, you
And you
know?
can also pick up add-ons on this for 47 Furious Tales as well, both in digital and in print copy too. They're there in the Pledge Manager. So let's go ahead and get
Nice.
the 80th backer here. Hey, Chris, come on, Miho, be backer 80. Let's end the stream on a big note, man. Dr. Soup, you gonna come in and help us out on this one, man? But yeah, seriously, guys, it's a wonderful project. It's a wonderful book. It's a badass adventuring elf woman who is really, really bringing the heat, and it is graphically violent. So we do a very serious. We do recommend it for people 17 and up. I would not recommend this for younger people.
We love that. The heck with the kids. I'm just kidding. All right, guys. Make sure you guys have a nice rest. Make sure you guys drink liquids. You too, Sam.
Certainly, I'm on it right now.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.